You could survive a hostage situation. Maybe. Let's talk about how. I'm Jen, and I'm constantly learning how you and I can become real-life superheroes. I received only the very, very basic hostage basics in my required anti-terrorism training during my time in the U.S. military, so to help you get the real good stuff, I interviewed Dan. Dan is a professionally trained hostage. As Director of Global Operations for a prominent international charity that often operates in dangerous areas, Dan knew he and his team needed a better understanding of how to take the heat if they're ever taken hostage. HEAT, Hostile Environment Awareness Training, pardon the pun, is an intense globally certified training given to everyone from UN operatives to civilian security personnel, full of punishing real-life experience in terrifying situations, and incidentally, that's Dan's first tip for surviving a hostage situation. You can't learn hostage situations just by hearing about them. Dan says you have to live them. So get real, high-intensity training with official certificates like that offered by the Norwegian Refugee Council, which you can find at nrc.no/heat-training. Don't worry, we'll drop a few basics right here, right now. So, as a physician, I've been taught that an ounce of prevention is always worth a pound of cure, so Dan and I talked at length about how to prevent a hostage situation. As a Ukrainian American, Dan asked me not to identify his last name or provide identifying details since he's actually on his way right now over to Ukraine to help with the war effort. That is actually an example of how do we prevent the hostage situation. Maintain good OPSEC. Don't let people know where you're going. Don't let everybody know what's going on. It kind of helps to protect you. I have a picture here that I've pulled up for you about the attack cycle. It's important to understand how hostage takers think when they're getting ready to look for a target. You don't want to be an easy target. Try to refrain from being loud, being particularly noticeable. Dan says when he travels, you can always recognize the Americans, partly because of attitude, because of conversations, because of volume, and because of the things you're wearing. Try to blend in, and that helps you not look like such a target. Dan says leave your expensive Rolex at home. Contrary to popular belief, the actual most common reason people are taken hostage is for money, and the most common area that you're going to be taken hostage is in Latin America. It's a get-rich-quick scheme. Kidnap an American or somebody from England, kidnap somebody that is perceived as wealthy, and get money for it. Kind of ideological kidnappings that you see in the Middle East, actually the minority. It's important to understand also there's a difference between being taken hostage and human trafficking. Somebody who's taken for human trafficking is going to be moved to a secondary location and sold. Somebody who's taken for hostage purposes is going to be kept, not passed on. Dan says that at the beginning they're going to ask for something outrageous, millions and millions of dollars, and eventually that number goes down as they continue to negotiate. Understand how hostage takers think. You have to understand the attack cycle. The first half of the attack cycle is surveillance. They identify the target and select the target, so you don't want to be identified as a target. They plan and prepare, and they start acquiring weapons. Then they start to move out and they attack. That is usually the time that you have the most chance to fight or escape. After that, your cycle is escape, suicide, or survive, or exploitation, which is them getting money for you. And then they continue and do it again to try to gain more money. It's important to understand that during rescue and during attack are the most dangerous times for both the hostage and the hostage taker. It's a particularly famous situation in which a number of Israeli citizens were taken hostage on a flight over North Africa. The North African hijackers kept the entire group under control for a significant amount of time before they were rescued by Israeli military. The only casualty after the attack phase was a single 18-year-old who during the rescue stood up to try to help, and he was gunned down, he was shot by the Israeli rescuers because he made a quick movement. During a rescue, you want to stay down, and you want to understand as well that you may be treated a little bit roughly by the rescuers as they try to figure out who is who. Everybody may be put in handcuffs and then sorted afterwards. At that time, it's a bad idea to try to help. There are exceptions to every single rule, obviously, but unless you want to get killed, you should not stand up and make their job more difficult. Stay down, stay low to the ground, and make it easy for them to figure out who they're trying to rescue. Another prevention tip, something that I learned in my Department of Defense training, was having a routine puts you at risk. Try not to have a routine and look particularly obvious. As people are trying to surveil you, understand the rule that Dan suggests, that 3 times is no longer a coincidence. You see the same red car outside of your hotel where you've been walking back and forth for 3 times, that's when you want to be a little bit more concerned. Now, Dan recommends not making it obvious when you notice someone surveilling you, and also not confronting. Next, in prevention, understand that it helps to have people de-identified in your phone so they don't know who to call. If you have somebody listed as wife, mom, whatever, they're going to try to call that person to get money from you. You also want to prepare your phone in other ways. It's best to have the best security that you can on your phone, not to have spyware apps and so forth. And I'll mention later why it's a good idea to have fake pictures of kids on your phone. That's another way you can prepare for a hostage situation. Even losing your phone can actually lead to a fake hostage situation where people have your phone, they call from it, and they pretend that they've kidnapped you. There is a really good example of a scam that's similar to this on Kit Boga's channel, so you should check that out, and that will be linked below. Scammers, not even just hostage takers, will sometimes use your phone, or they'll even just call not using your phone, pretending that you've been kidnapped. By the way, if you have an Android phone, I'm going to include a link in the description below for how you can remove spyware apps from your phone. It's a little bit labor intensive, but it's certainly worth it. It can also help make it safer for you while you travel and make you less of a target. So try not to let your phone be out of your sight during checkpoints as well. It's not impossible in certain corrupt areas for information to be passed from officials who've seen your phone to folks who want to try to use you for ransom. So there's that. Say you've done all the preventative measures, but you have still been taken captive. What do? People are usually killed when they're trying to escape. That is a great time for the hostage takers to make an example of you for the rest of the group. You are worth money to them as long as they have you. You are not worth money to them if you leave. So you leaving, you might as well be dead. So if you're going to escape, make sure it's a sure thing. Make sure you find a sure way to get out. Another thing that you should keep in mind is, contrary to the popular things that are depicted in media where it's, people are a badass and grumpy, you want to have an attitude that is affable. In other words, you want to make them kind of like you and not really want to hurt you. So be friendly, don't give up private information, don't tell them things that they shouldn't know, but be friendly, act like you're open, and be somebody that they can sympathize with. And this is why you want to have the pictures of the kids on your phone. A lot of people, even very, very bad people, can sympathize with kids. So even if you have imaginary children, talk about them and talk about the activities you do with them and so forth. Pretending to be cooperative also has other strategic advantages. One of the things that I learned with damsels in defense, and something that Dan also recommends, is once it's apparent that the attack is over, present your hands to be bound in front of you, and that'll make them more easily usable. If you fight and make it difficult for them at that point, when it's clear that you're going to be taken hostage, they will usually tie your hands behind you, making them not useful and making it harder for you to actually escape. Damsels in Defense teaches that, especially if the attackers are using duct tape, present your arms like this. Both arms together, both forearms touching. Then it's actually quite easy to rip free because you can use your entire force of your arms and muscles. It's a little bit harder when the surface area is less and you have wrists. But presenting your wrists like this also allows you to have some surface area because there's space here. And then when you do need to escape, especially if it's duct tape, you can make a strong downward motion like so. And the force will cause tape to tear near your elbows. So highly recommend pretending to be cooperative. Now understand that, we're preventing Stockholm Syndrome here. The underlying goal is not to identify with or become mentally enslaved by your attackers, but to have your own autonomy and make your life as easy as possible. So understand you are pretending, but you still want to make sure to have the appearance of openness, honesty, and certainly kindness. Try to make human connections with your attackers. Dan recommends avoiding significant political or religious discussions. Now, there are obviously exceptions to every rule, and if you are of a belief system where it's important to try to share love to your attackers through your belief system, that is obviously your choice, but understand that those kind of things will put you in more danger and tend to make it more difficult for you during that time. So it's best to think ahead of time what kind of things you would say to a hostage taker, how you would behave, and how you would survive under different difficult scenarios in which you might find yourself. If you know ahead of time what you would do, it's easier to make sure you actually do that during that time. So I would recommend that for every difficult scenario you can think of, you sit down and come up with what you think is the best possible solution. I hope that some of that information has been helpful. Next time, tune in live so that you can get all of the information and all of the secret tidbits that only folks on the live see. Head over to twitch.tv/peterpan. Usually Thursdays between 4:30 CST or 5:30 CST is when we interview interesting people on our journey to become a real-life superhero. You really can become a real-life superhero, and I have a 5-day course for you as well in the description that you can use to kind of motivate yourself and come up with what is your superhero purpose. Don't forget to hit the like button if you liked this video, and if you didn't, I'm sorry. I don't know what I could have done differently.